Hello everybody, this is Parveen and I welcome you to the App DNA channel where we talk about all things apps. Today I'll be talking to you about Human Resource Management System, or in short an HRMS app. We will be building our HRMS app with our low-code platform Zoho Creator. What is Zoho Creator? Zoho Creator is a low-code platform where we use a drag-and-drop interface to drag elements, drop them, build our workflows and deploy apps as quick as possible. It is meant for both developers and non-developers alike, and today our tutorial is aimed at the non-developer audience who can understand the flow of the app easily. Our HRMS app will have 5 features essentially. The first is that we will be adding our employees in an employee database. The second is that we will raise resource requirements for the departments. The third is that we can check our open and closed requirements. The fourth is that the employee should be able to raise resignation requests. And the fifth is that we will be able to share the app with our employees and give them the views and permissions that are needed. We will now log into creator.zoho.com where we will be building our first form, and that is the employee form. Welcome to creator.zoho.com where we will be building our HRMS app today. I have an option to either create a new application, or if I have been already using spreadsheets to manage my human resources, then I can simply import those files and an app will be created for me. I'll go for new application, and this takes me to our app gallery where we have 50 pre-made applications built by our developers, and these are ready to be installed, so you can simply install them and start using them. But first I will take you through a tutorial of our HRMS app, after which I will show you the app that can be installed from here. I'll create one from scratch and I'll name my app as HRMS 2018. Now this takes me to the workspace where I'll be creating a new form. The first form I want to create is to add my departments. So this is our form builder where we will drag and drop these elements to create our forms. The first field I want is a single line field, and this is to add my department. So the department name, and I hit done. So my department form is done, and I will create another form, and this is for the designation. In my designation form, I'll use a special field called the lookup, which is used to relate two forms so that we can access the data residing in another form for this one, and we can relate the relationship between the two data fields. So I will use the lookup to my department form because I want to know which department we are talking about here. And then once I know the department, I can input the designation for the current employee. So this one will be select department. And once I have selected the department, I want to know the designation. So I'll use the single line field and I'll name it as designation. Hit done. So my department form and my designation form is done. And now I will create my employee form. This form is named as add employee. And about my employees, I want to know their name, their employee ID, their email. I'll name this one as employee ID. And then I will use a lookup to my department and designation, so that I know which department this employee is working for, and the designation. Now I can make the employee form as comprehensive as I want. I can add their profile picture, their contact numbers and stuff like that. So for uploading your profile picture, you can use the image field here. For contact number, you can use the phone number here. And for gender, you can use the radio button here. And so my employee form is done here. Now I want to access this application and see it in the live mode. So I'll click on this access application. The difference between the live mode and the edit mode is that this is the edit mode where we create our forms, our workflows, our settings. And in the live mode, we will see our app running. So this is my department, my designation, and my employee forms. Let's get started with my department form first. Let's say that the department is marketing. So in my all departments, you will see marketing as the department. Now I'll go and add my designation. So in marketing, I am a marketing analyst. I add it. In my all designation, you'll see that under the marketing department, there's a designation called marketing analyst. Now when I go to my employees to add my employee, the moment I select marketing, I have to go and select marketing analyst. So I will go and create a workflow that ensures that designation gets auto-populate depending on the department. I'll tell you what I mean. Let's say I add another department, and this one is sales. In my designation, I have sales and sales executive. Now when I want to add my employees, let's say I'm choosing marketing. In my designation, I have both sales executive and marketing analyst. This should not happen because sales executive does not come under the Department of Marketing. So I'll go back and create a new workflow which will take care of this workflow I want while using the form. Add employee. The workflow name can be populate designation, and here I will add a new action on the user input of department. So in the field actions on user input of department, I want that the records be fetched from my designation form and then they be added in the UI of my designation field in the employee form. So for this I will use the fetch records task here. So this is my deluge builder where we build our workflows the same way we build our forms by dragging and dropping these deluge tasks, which are blocks of code. So let's say my variable name is populate designation. I want to go to the form, add designation. If the field select department equals input.department, then I want to get their ID dot get all. What this line does is this variable goes to my add designation form. It selects all the records in the select department which match the department that I have inputted in my employee form. And once it knows that record, it gets their ID and get all fetches all the IDs of them. And now I have to add these departments that match the designation in my UI. For this I will do input.add designation, UI.add, and my collection populate designation. Now I hit save, done. And now I will go back to my live mode and see whether this time the designation gets populated. So when I click on marketing, this time you see that I have only marketing analyst, sales executive does not come. So if I select, let's say sales, this time sales executive gets populated. So our employee form is working well. So I will add my first employee, let's say it's me. Add. So in my all employees report, I'll see Parveen Chaudhary added. So our first feature where we are adding our employees and a database. Once we have sorted our employees into departments and designations, we can have a resource requirement form with which our employees can raise a requirement for their department. In our second feature, we will be raising a resource requirement. For this, I'll create a new form, and this one I'll name as raise resource requirement. I'll use two lookups in this form as well for my department and designation. So the first one will be for my department, next the designation, and we will use the auto-populate workflow that we had done back in the employee form for this one as well. So once I know which department and designation has a vacancy, I can use the number field here, and this is for number of vacancies open. Next up, the last date of registration. Then you can use the note fields here. And the note I want to write that the preferred candidate should have the following details or something. Preferred candidate, and in the preferred candidate I can use the radio button whether we need an experienced person or a fresher. Next I can use the multi-line field for desired skill set. And then I'll use the drop-down field here for the requirement status. Now this one will have two options, whether the requirement status is opened or closed. I hit done. So my raise resource requirement form is done. And I'll have a few workflows in this, the same way that I had in the add employee, that I want to populate the department name here. So that one will be very much similar to the other one. One user input of department. I want to have another workflow that will hide the requirement status on load of my resource requirement form. And this one I can do through the field actions, hide requirement status, and hit save. Now our resource requirement form and its workflows are done, so we'll go and reload our app, and this is our resource requirement form. So I will add my department sales. My sales executive designation is here. The number of vacancies open is 2. Last date for registration is 21st. Preferred candidate, I want a fresher, and the desired skill set could be communication and race. So the moment I raise a requirement in my all resource requirements, I can see the details of what I need. So my second feature in which we raise a requirement is done, and we'll move on to our open and closed requirement reports. Once a requirement has been raised, it will move to our open requirements report. But every time an employee is added, we will check if he meets the criteria of any of our requirements, and then we will move that employee to our closed requirement reports. So let's check out how to make these two reports. Now to check our open and closed requirements, we will have to create a few workflows, but first we will go to our raise requirement form. And here we will check whether the requirement status has open as default. Once we have checked that, we will go on to create a new report list based on the form raise resource requirement, and I'll name this one as open requirements. And in this report, I will add a filter that my requirement status should equal open and save. So my open requirements will have all the open status true. So every time a requirement is raised, it will be shown in the open requirement report because of the status being open. But we need to move this record to the closed requirement report if that vacancy is filled. And how to check if the vacancy is filled? So every time a new employee is recorded, we are going to check if his department designation matches the department and designation of one of our open requirements, and if it does, then we are going to minus it from our number of vacancies and we are going to move it to the closed requirement report. All of this will be done through a workflow. So I'll create one while using the form add employee. So every time an employee is added, I want to know whether he matches one of the requirements that have been raised. Let the workflow be check requirement match. Add a new action, custom action on successful submit of a form, and here we are going to check first if the requirement is fulfilled. For that, we will go to fetch our records. So let's say the variable name is requirement. It goes to the form raise a resource requirement, and it checks whether the add department field is the same as the department of my employee. That can be done as add department equals input dot department of my employee, and if the designation also matches the input of my current employee, so input dot add designation, and if the number of vacancies open is greater than 0. So this will check if the current employee that I'm adding matches the designation, the department, and if there are open vacancies in my report. Once that has been checked, I'm going to use the if loop here. So if the requirement, this variable dot count, is not equal to 0, that means this requirement has some data in it. So then I'm going to go to this collection variable and I'm going to manipulate it. My collection dot number of vacancies open, requirement dot number of vacancies open minus 1. So this line will subtract a number from the number of vacancies if all of the above criteria matches, because if all the above criteria matches, then my employee is a correct fit and I need to move it out of the open requirements to the closed requirements. That would be done with this minus 1, and again a if condition. If requirement dot number of vacancies equals 0 right now, then I will change my requirement status to closed. And we are done with this workflow. I hope you understood. I'll recap what I have done here. First, I have taken a random variable. This variable will go to my raise a resource requirement form and it will check all the records and find a perfect match. So if my employee has a department, it will match whether my employee's department matches the department of the raised resource requirement, if it matches the designation, and if the number of vacancies open is greater than 0. This variable has some count in it. This loop will run where it will go and reduce a number from the number of vacancies open, and if the number of vacancies finally is 0, then that requirements status will be changed to closed. So the moment it changes to closed, I can go on to create a new report the same way I created my open requirement report. So based on my resource requirement, I'm going to create closed requirements. Open the report properties, add a new filter, select field requirement status equals closed. Hit save. So both my reports are done. Now when I go to my live mode of the app, I can see that there are two reports, open requirements and closed requirements. Now when I raise a new resource requirement, let's see what happens. It should be there in the open requirements. Yeah, it is there in the open requirements. Now when I add a new employee for my marketing analyst, let's see what happens. Marketing analyst. This time when I go to my resource requirements, in my open requirements there are nothing. When I go to my closed requirement, I can see that my marketing analyst requirement has moved to the closed requirements because the employee that I just now added matched all the fields based on my workflow, and so it moved on to closed requirements. So in our third feature of checking open and closed requirement reports is done. In the fourth step, we will check how an employee can apply for resignation. For employees to apply for resignation, we will go on to create a new form. Apply resignation, and here I will use the lookup for my employee ID. Go to add employee ID, and here I can also select to know their first name along with employee ID, and then the reason for resignation, so a single line field. Next, the relieving date. Then you can upload the resignation letter. For that, I can use my file upload feature right here. The signature of the employee and the resignation status. So the drop down for the resignation status. Now the status can be either applied resignation accepted or resignation rejected. And hit done. So the resignation status will be by default applied when they apply for it. And my resignation form is done here. Now I will create a workflow so that I can auto-populate the employee ID. For that, I'll create a workflow while using the form apply resignation. On load, when the form loads, I'll use the fetch records. Input.employee equals, go to employee form, check the email. If the email equals Zoho.login user ID, this line goes to my add employee form. It checks for all the records whose email matched the logged in user ID at that moment, gets their ID, and then populates it in the ID field. And then I want to disable the employee. Now I'll go to the design. I'll check my all resignation report, and in the layout I'll check if the resignation status is here. Yeah, it's here. Now I'll create two custom action buttons for my accept and reject. This one is for the accept button. Run the below workflow on the condition that the resignation status equals applied. Create the workflow, custom script. So I just want the resignation status to change to accepted. Hit done. Create the item. Similarly, I'll create another one for my reject button on the condition that the status is applied. This one changes the resignation status to rejected. I hit done. So my apply resignation custom action buttons have been created. Now I'll add them to the layout, add fields. Now in our resignation form, I'll go on to apply resignation. So because I'm logged in with my email ID, Parveen.c, so it auto-populates my employee ID and my name. So reason for resignation. Then I can type a relieving date. Here I can draw my signature. This is an useful field, and I hit apply. So I can hide this resignation status with my workflows, but for now I'll apply and I'll see my all resignation report. So the admin or the HR can now see the all resignation reports, and here they can see that Parveen has applied for resignation and they can either accept it. So when they accept it, the resignation status changes to accepted, or they could have rejected it, in which case the status would have changed to rejected. So our feature of resignation form and accepting and rejecting resignations in the HRMS app is done, and we will move on to sharing the app in the next feature. Our app has been built and now we will look at how to share this app with employees with the required views. Now we have built our app. We have the department's designation, employees, the resource requirement, and the resignations and stuff. Now we need to share this app with our employees and we need to decide what all views that we have to give them. So to sharing the app with your employees, you can go to this green button over here. Share application with a user. So employee is a user for your organization. I'm going to create a custom permission. I'm going to name this profile as employee. And what are the permissions that I want to give them? Now I want to give them access to the apply resignation form, and then I want them to check the raise a resource requirement so that they can raise requirements for their departments. They don't need to see their add employee, but they can view the all employees so that they can check the employees of their organization. And that's all that I want to give them access to. I hit next and then I have to add a user. So let's say I'm going to add my friend Akshay as a user and I hit share. So what happens on Akshay's end, we are going to find out. This is Akshay's mail, and right here Parveen.c has invited to access HRMS 2018. He goes to the application and here he has access to only the views that I have shared with him. So he can check all the employees of his organization. He can check Parveen, PC. He can go to the resource requirement form. Here he can raise a requirement for his department and he can go and access the resignation form. So this is how we share the app with our employees. When you build more modules and customize the app much better, you can go and reshare the app with the required accesses that you want to give to your employees. Our app is ready and let's have a quick demo to re-encapsulate all that we have learned about Creator today. Now that we are done with creating our app and we have incorporated as much as we can with our 5 steps, I'm going to show you a quick demo of this app so that we can recap what we all learned. We can customize our app with the themes that are available here. So let's check out some different themes. Let me check out this one, and I'd want to have a color option as well. And then I can go on to regroup the themes, put them under tabs. So let's say that I want to have a new section called settings. And in settings, I want to drag this department field under the settings. So now I have my employees, my resource requirements, my resignations, and my settings. Let's go. You can even have icons. Yeah. So when you type yes, use icons, default icons come, and then you can change the icons from here. You have a lot of options for customizing. Now we'll go and reload our app. Let's see how it looks like. So the theme has changed now, and in the settings we have department designations, resignations, all are under different tabs, and we will start with adding a new department. So let's say this department is development. Add a designation, developer. Now I'm going to add an employee. Let's say I'm going to add the developer gets populated. Hit add. Now I can go and raise a resource requirement for the development. And when I check my open requirements, we can see that there is a necessity for a developer in the development department, and the requirement status is open. When you go and check to the closed requirements, you can see the previous requirements that we had. And if you check all resource requirements, you can see all that we have ever created. Now, the same employee can go and apply for a resignation. Because I'm logged in with my ID, my ID is populated. So we'll go to Akshay's and see what's happening there. Now in Akshay's app, you can see that his employee ID is being populated, so he can apply for resignation. And then the admin can check the resignations here in all resignation report. So Akshay has applied for resignation. I can reject it, and the resignation status changes to rejected. So this is the overall flow of our HRMS. I'll now take you to our app gallery where we can check out the HRMS app that was built by our developers. We will install it and see what all features it has. To go to Creator's app gallery, you need to click on the new application, and here you need to find Human Resource Management app here. So I'm going to install this application. So our HRMS app has installed now. It asks us to add an organization. Let me add my organization, and then We have to select our weekdays. We have our add employee form here, which is vast. Then you have your employee assets. So they have also linked to the assets to each employee, software and hardware they are having. And then the employees can check their own profile in My Profile. We have an attendance tracker here where the employees can check their own attendance and the admin can check everyone's attendance. There is a leave tracker. There is a time tracker where you can have your projects, jobs, daily time logs, weekly time logs. You can have your appraisals right from the app, your announcements, and you can have the resignation, which we also built in our app. Now this is the admin. We have the admin dashboard as well here, and then we have the employee exit surveys. So this app is a completely comprehensive human resource management app. I want you to go install this app and check it out for yourself and try to build it on our low-code platform the same way that I built it. If you have any comments or doubts about this app, then you can shoot them in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more such app making videos. Till then, keep making apps and be happy.